Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, espes nostra salve, patricamus.
As I look back on my time at college, I graduated in 2020. Those 4 years beforehand, I was heavily involved in campus ministry. I had several classes with different monks, and I just was really impressed right off the get-go as a freshman. They have neighborhood to neighborhood where they invite groups of different freshmen to come over and pray evening prayer with the monks and then have dinner with a couple of the monks afterwards. Coming over and praying Vespers for that first time, I was just very struck by the sound of all of the men in the community praying the Salve Regina and chanting the Salve Regina in a cappella. There was no music. That summer between freshman and sophomore year, I was working in Georgia at a summer camp sponsored by Life Teen. And the last day with campers, the Lord very clearly spoke to me during Mass and called me to pursue the priesthood. I never felt like I didn't have a home in whatever church I was in. I never felt like I was unsafe or anything like that. I always felt comfortable. I always felt that everything always felt familiar. And I think in large part it was because of my parents' involvement, my family's involvement in their faith. I've been very blessed that my family has been very encouraging. My extended family has all told me, like, yeah, we've seen this coming for a while, that you're thinking about the priesthood, thinking about monastic life. And it's such a blessing to have that because it's very freeing to know that I've got support from all sides around me. There's nobody that's important to me that's saying or thinks that this is not something good for me. I've always been encouraged by all my family. And I'm very thankful for that. I learned about Saint Vincent as a whole because of Steelers training camp. My mom had joked, oh, wouldn't it be fun if you went to college here? And this was in 8th grade, going into 8th grade before we even decided where I was going to high school. And I just like, I'm not having any of this. I'm here for football, that's it. She's like, well, do you even want to go to the Basilica? But nope, I'm here for football, that's all. And it's just kind of funny looking back on how ironic that whole conversation was, because not only did I go to college here I am as a monk, and it's just fun how that works. I think when I first came to that neighborhood to neighborhood as a freshman and experienced evening prayer here, and then came back the next day. Over time, I started including midday prayer into my routine and got a better sense of how the day was structured. And there was something that was very attractive to me. Maybe I had this notion that when I entered the monastery, all my problems would be solved, everything would make sense, everything would just kind of like in a snap of fingers, like everything would go away and it would just be rainbows and sunshine. Even if I knew in the back of my head that that was unrealistic, I think that was still a thought of mine. That when I got here, it was kind of a little bit of a shock to realize pretty quickly that's not the case. Whatever initial jitters or fear or sense of, I think I've made a mistake, he just spoke right into it or reassured me, you're not making a mistake. You're here because I've called you. I want you here. We're going to work through this together. Discernment doesn't end when you make that first initial step or even the first big step that you make, such as coming in for a novitiate. If anything, it intensifies, it continues. It's more difficult because there are things that I've had to work through personally the last 4 or 5 years that at different moments, the thing really that always got me through those moments was knowing that the Lord was with me. That if this was true, that I was not called to be here, that things were going to change, He would make it clear. He would make it so obviously clear that I would have no doubt. It was always clear to me in the aftermath of everything, surrendering and giving those things to the Lord. No, I'm meant to be here. This was part of the process of helping solidify that decision. Lord, I still trust that you're here. I still trust that you're with me. I still trust that you're blessing me. And He's always responded to that. I lost my grandfather about 2.5 years ago, and that was not surprisingly hard because I loved him very much. He and I were very close. At the same time, it was kind of surprising how hard it was to work through that. The experience of loss of somebody like that, someone very dear, that was a hard time in my discernment, hard time in my seminary experience. that was a time too where I experienced the fullness of the love of the community, the depths that I was talking about, how much they care about me, how much they love me, how much they were there to support me. I am a sacristan and an assistant master of ceremonies with the monastery, so any of the liturgies that we have, I'm roaming around or setting up things behind the scenes. As a seminarian, I just completed my third theology studies, going into fourth theology, and to be ordained, God willing, a deacon this coming August, Labor Day weekend. And I'm also a Master of Arts in Systematic Theology candidate. I'm working on that currently as well. Just going on a come and see weekend is not strings attached to that. There's no strings attached. It literally is just to come and see. And if it's to come and see and realize that this is not for me, great. That's a very concrete step. That's something a feather you can put in your cap and say, okay, Lord, like, what's the next step? Where are you calling me now? But if something does happen on that, and there is interest, or there is something that the Lord is speaking to your heart, that's something to continue to pray with. Maybe he's calling you to come back again, or maybe he's calling you to go somewhere else. All these things are so important, and true discernment is navigating these things with God. But if we are growing in holiness and becoming the people God has intended us to be, these things will answer themselves.